Hello folks, just doing my standard 10-minute to go test of the sound and video. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can, please let me know in the chat so that I know it's all working okay. And secondly, as I've just put in the chat, let me know what you've been shooting this week. I've had my first model shoot since lockdown, and I'll be sharing some of that in a couple of weeks' time about that. So see you in about 10 minutes time when we start the live stream properly. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to In Studio Live. This is edition number 26. Yep, we've been going for 26 weeks. That's half a year. And we started this at the beginning of lockdown. Where has this year gone? Hey? Where has it gone? Anyway, we're here tonight and I've got another hopefully interesting show for you. Okay, a little bit different, trying something that I haven't tried before. We'll see whether it works as the show goes on. So let's get started and do my usual run through an explanation for the benefit of anyone who's watching this who hasn't seen the show before. These are weekly shows that will remain on YouTube for a while. I've got a huge backlog to go through, but I really am going to be cracking down on that over the next few weeks to do the editing on those, to put them into cut down versions and smaller versions, extracts here on YouTube across my 3 different channels, my travel channel, my Lightroom channel, and here on the main In Studio channel. So do ask questions in chat. The regulars already know that. I'm doing live Q&A. I will try and deal with any questions that you throw at me. So if anything occurs to you, just pop it in there. If you're watching this on the replay, then put your questions in the comments, and please subscribe. I say this every week, and I'm sure the regulars already have done, but if you're new to it and you find this show interesting and find the other sort of videos I put up on here, please subscribe to the various channels so that you get notified when there's new stuff up there. And comment on the videos. If you're watching something that's recorded, please leave me a comment so I know you've seen it and that I know what you think about it. And hit the like button. I say this every week. At this point, there's usually a flurry of activity as people reach off for the like button on here. Yeah, I've just seen an extra one go in there, so well done. But it says here that there are 13 of you watching and only 6 likes. So come on, 7. Yeah, they're all going up there now. Thank you very much. And do let other people know about the show as well, because that will really help me. I have a Facebook group which is very closely linked with the show. There's the link over my shoulder. It's also down in the description. During the week, there's discussions going on there. There's usually a theme that ties in with the Sunday night show, and a chance for people to share photos, which I'll provide feedback, sometimes in the Facebook group, but sometimes here on the show. And that's what I'll be doing tonight. I've picked out some of the images from the week, and I'll be talking about them a little bit later. So please join in on the Facebook group. It'd be great to get to know everyone on there. And it's also the place where I let people know what's going on with the live stream. Hopefully this week I'll be posting what the details are of the next few weeks' themes. I've got a couple of special ones coming up for you that maybe 1 or 2 things you weren't expecting coming up there soon. I have a newsletter. I'm due to be writing a new one, sending one out on, I think, Tuesday on there. And again, the link for that is down below in the description. So please sign up for that on there. So what have we got on the show this week? Well, a little bit of news. Telling you what's going on. Not much from the industry this time, mainly my news, but hopefully relevant to you. We're going to be talking about camera cleaning and sensor cleaning, which has been asked for a few weeks ago, and I've had to put off until I had, well, a faster laptop to be able to do everything I needed on this, and until I was able to check out the technology to make sure it worked. We're going to be looking at some of your images. I've picked out 3 for a little bit more detailed feedback, and the rest I'll give some sort of quick thoughts and hints and tips on as we go through. And I'm going to challenge you, yes, you, to create some images in a particular way. It's a challenge I've done with a number of groups over the years. I hope some of you will take me up on this one. I'll give you a couple of weeks to do it, and I'll explain how it all works a little bit later on in the show. We've got the live Q&A, as I've already mentioned. So what else has been happening? Well, for those of you who are subscribed, you will know that this last 10 days, I've been publishing my Introduction to DaVinci Resolve course on YouTube. 10 videos taking you from knowing nothing about Resolve to being able to do some basic edits and exporting them to be able to upload them to YouTube. And I know 1 or 2 people have been watching it. So if you're curious about video editing, do take a look at that and have a follow through on it. DaVinci is a great program. It's free. And these days, as photographers, we're not limited to just still images. We've got the moving image. Most of our cameras can do video, and doing DaVinci as a free product will help you get really good results and will help you present your video in an interesting way, in a good way. So if it's of interest to you, do take a look at that. And if you have been watching it, let me know. It'd be good to get some feedback on it. I know there have been a few people watching. I've had a few subscribers, but it'd be nice to know from the rest of you. And I've just spotted on here, Richard Lovelock's just joined us. So hi, Richard, and hi, everybody else. I think I greeted most people earlier in the chat. Oh, no, missed at least one other name on there. I missed Gary and possibly Michael. No, I thought I said hello to Michael. Anyway, if I've missed you, my apologies. Welcome to the live stream. Oh, right, okay. There should be one other bit of news. It's not in there. And that bit of news is events are coming back to the studio. We got the news this week that Stockport is coming out of special measures in terms of lockdown. So as of this coming Wednesday, we are under the same criteria as the rest of the country, which still has some restrictions on us, but that means I can start running my studio events again. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to do them very differently to previous. In the past, I would book a model, choose a theme, advertise it, and see what photographers I get. Because I'm now limited to 3 photographers at a time, I'm looking for the photographers first. And I've emailed 3 people during the week, which reminds me, Richard Lovelock, you're one of them. I hope you got my email. If you could drop me a reply in the next couple of days, then I can, if you are interested, then we can get something sorted, because you were one of the first people to say, let you know, so I have let you know. But anyone else who's interested, I'm trying to get a couple of groups going early on, and the idea is I'll find 3 photographers, find out what you want to shoot, and we'll book a model with your input so that we get a model of the style that you want. The events will either be 3 or 4 hours, again, depending on what the photographers want, and it will be tailored to those photographers for that particular session. It will be a little bit more expensive than what I normally run, but on the plus side, you're getting much more input in the planning stages, you're getting much more time shooting the model as well. So I hope there'll be some interest for those of you who are within commutable distance of Stockport. I know a few of you aren't, but do get in touch and I'll explain how that works. And the idea is that if I've got 6 or 7 people, I'll put together people who are interested in similar themes so that we can cover those sort of topics. So it'd be great to sort of get that going over the next couple of weeks. I'd like to try and, it'd be nice to have the studio back in use again, to be honest. And on a similar theme to this, I had my first shoot with a model this week, and that was a good session, full day on there, and I'll be sharing some of the results of that with you in a live stream in a couple of weeks' time, because one of the things I did as part of that first shoot was I created a couple of training videos on art nude photography, and I'm going to be doing, I think in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks time, just depends how the planning goes, on this, a session, one of these Sunday night sessions, focusing on art nude photography, which means I am looking for someone to provide me with an art nude image for the 3-minute challenge, specifically for that show. It will be protected on YouTube though. It will be set as mature audience, which means you will have to have the appropriate settings. But I can talk a bit more about that nearer the time. But that was all this week that I was shooting that in anticipation for that event that's coming up, that live stream that's coming up. So I thought you might want to know about that. Right, Q&A, part 1. Not seeing any new questions in the chat yet. Just to remind people, there is a delay. There's about 30 seconds between me talking to you and you hearing me on there, the joys of YouTube with that. If you get questions during the week, then do send them to the email address on the screen, contact me at iansstudio.co.uk. Had one come in today, which has added into the list for tonight. And this is it. And it was Gary who asked. He said, do you have, or if you don't, could you ask tonight, if anyone has any experience of using XP Pen, Huion or Wacom display tablets, and what are their experiences? Right, I can tell you a little bit about Wacom. I have a Wacom Bamboo that I use occasionally. I used to use it all the time, and I used to use it instead of using the mouse. I then stopped using it, and I only use it when I need to do very fine drawing detail in Photoshop now. So let me explain the reason why I changed. I still love it. I still love having a tablet, and I want to keep it, and I will carry on using it. But when you're working multi-screen, as I do, and at home I have got 4 screens, there's 2 ways of setting your tablet up. One way is that the whole width of the tablet covers the whole width of all your screens, which is fine when you're working with just one screen, because then the cursor is on there. But if you've only got, as I have, a small Wacom, which is about so big, the actual area, and that translates to 4 screens alongside each other, a very slight movement with the pen will move you all the way across your monitor. It's a pain like that. The other way of setting it up is that the tablet corresponds to one of those screens, your main screen, which is how I have mine set up. The problem is then, if you're using the pen, you can't move the mouse pointer outside that main screen, and you then have to swap over and use the mouse to move on the other screens, which is fine if you are just working in Photoshop and you've got everything on one screen. And that tends to be when I use it. But I will pick up the pen if I'm trying to do fine detail. I want that control on there. Now, I like that ability to get that fine control. I really need to get my head around the pressure sensitivity in there. I have played with it a little bit, but I've not actually mastered the technique on it. And that is something I really need to do, because I'm someone who draws. I used to do a lot of cartooning. Some little known facts about me. I used to have a regular cartoon strip that I did for a local newspaper, and that was published regularly. And so I can draw, and that idea of the pressure sensitivity to change the flow for some reason, it doesn't quite work right with me. And I haven't quite got the techniques right with it. It's something I need to play with a little bit more. Now, the other side of the question, Gary did say, has anybody else had experience? And I can see over in the chat that people have. And Kev says he dumped his Wacom for I wish I knew how to pronounce this. Huion. Bought a very large one, which made it easy to work over multiple monitors. Yeah, exactly the problem I was talking about. Michael says that he uses a Huion, and they're pretty good. Used to use Wacom, but had issues with the driver behavior in Lightroom. That's an odd one. I've never tried using my, not for a long time actually, using my tablet in Lightroom, because I don't tend to use that sort of, need that sort of sensitivity in there. Yeah, and he's using it just to work on one monitor. Oh, and Kev is telling me that the Huion pressure sensitive mode works great. Maybe I'll look at those when the time comes to replace my Bamboo. I didn't know whether I was going to get on with a tablet, to be honest. And you believe it, I got mine from Aldi. They just seemed to have an offer on 1 week, and I thought, hang on a minute, these are Wacom, and they're going for silly low price. So I just drove down and got one. And yeah, I probably will get something better. I'd love to have one of the, well, I'm sure the Huion do the same, but I love the idea of the big Wacom where you're actually drawing on the screen. It's with it, but how easy it is to use, I don't know with that. So the general feeling, I think most people do find them helpful. It can be a pain with multiple monitors, and you do have to find the approach that works for you, Gary, whichever way you want to do that. Yeah, Stuart's saying that he needs to give a proper go. Yeah, they do take a little bit of getting used to. And I found when I first started using mine that I was using it for everything. It did take that little bit of, it's a slightly different technique to the to using the mouse. Oh, right, let's move on. This brings us on to our next question, which is one which was asked weeks ago. It's the one that I said I'd have to hold back on, which is the whole business of sensor cleaning. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change things around a little bit here, and I'll talk you through sensor cleaning. Now, this is where I need to guess that I've got everything set up right, and go over to a slightly different display. Yes, so far, so good. Right, what I've got set up here, as you can now see, I've got a camera pointing down on part of the desk, so that I can work on this, and you can see what's going on the desk. So let's just talk about camera cleaning in general first before we get on to sensor cleaning. And I'm going to deal with something that every photographer should know about, and I used to never talk about it, and people don't talk about it. And then I ran a workshop, and I actually found a photographer who didn't know about this topic. Not sensor cleaning, lens cleaning. And this particular photographer came to a workshop I ran, and he said to me, he said, I just want some advice on this lens. I think it's damaged, and I think I need to replace it. And I took a look at the lens, and all I did was get a cloth out and cleaned it, and everything that he was complaining about with that lens was solved simply by cleaning it. So from that point on, I've started talking about lens cleaning to make sure people do know how to do it and what's involved. Lens cleaning, we've all done it. We've all used the end of a t-shirt and things like that. Try and avoid doing that. What you need at minimum is something like this. I'm glad I had a blue one and not a green one, otherwise it'd disappear into the green screen. It's just a simple microfiber cloth. This one is actually one that came with a set of my specs, but that's all it is, microfiber cloth. And to clean a lens, the solution with it is you just need to breathe on the lens to fog it up. That's as much moisture as you need. And then with a microfiber cloth, just go round in circles to clean it. And it really is as simple as that. Now, if you've got stubborn marks on there, what I recommend is, I'll get these out so you can see them, put them the right way up for you, PEC pads. Now, PEC pads are general, they're little pads that you can use for cleaning, and you'll see me use these for something else in a moment. But if I grab one of these, and what they work with is this Eclipse fluid, and hopefully you can see that on screen. And Eclipse fluid is basically cleaning fluid, and it's a similar sort of approach to breathing on the lens. You just put a couple of drops on there, and then you've got a wet clean just to clean the lens. And it's always circular motion on there, and that will get rid of anything that's stubborn on there. Not only that, but you can clean any other part of your camera with it as well. So you can just go over. But if you're going to do that, do the lens and the glass first before going on to other areas, because you don't want to pick up any grit on the camera. So there we go, nice clean lens on there. Hopefully you're able to see all that. So I'm just going to leave those on there so you can see them for the time being. Right, just to say at this point that down in the description, I've tried to put together a list of the different things I've talked about. I have talked about and am talking about tonight as part of this cleaning. Those links are to Amazon, and they are affiliate links, which means, in theory, if you click on that and then buy, I get a small financial reward on there. I say in theory because although I've been an Amazon affiliate for a number of years, I've never had anybody buy anything through any of my links. Not that I've posted many. So if you are going to buy anything based on what I'm talking about tonight, please use one of those links, because I'd love to know whether it works on there. I wouldn't mind the money some money from Amazon as well, but that's another story. I'm just curious to know whether the links actually work and whether it shows up on my account. So that's lens cleaning. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about with this. What about cleaning other parts of the camera? Right. Well, I've already said you can use the likes of the PEC pads for just cleaning the bodywork on there. If you get problems with things like the hot shoe on there with bad connections, things for cleaning that, and also you can do it with the connections on the lens as well, but be very careful to use, they're quite hard to come by these days, erasers, but not pencil erasers. They're well, when I was growing up as a kid, we always used to call them the pen erasers, the really hard ones, and they've got a bit more of a texture to them. They are actually for pencil as well, a particular type of art pencil. But if you use that, they're particularly good for cleaning contacts. So if you've got problems with your contacts, try that sort of thing. Cleaning the screen on the back of the camera, again, PEC pads, a little bit of fluid on there would do nicely. To do that, mine usually has a whole load of nose prints on it, so hopefully that will get rid of most of that. Same with the eyepiece, you can see cleaning through on there. Right, so yeah, it's starting to look like a good camera again, this. Still getting a few smears on there from this angle anyway. It's partly, I guess, the lights on it. I'm going to grab another one of these and just give that a wipe over, try and get rid of the smears. Oh, yeah, that's getting there. Still some on there. That shows how infrequently I wipe this thing down. But yeah, that's looking a lot better now. So there we go. Right, at this point, if you could just let me know that you are actually able to follow with my hands on there, because what I can't do is see how much I'm blocking the screen on here as I'm trying to explain all this. Is it all looking okay with what I'm doing? If it isn't, put something in the chat, just so that I know on there, and I'll try and find a better way. Now, let's move on to sensor cleaning. Let's try and put one of the rubber plugs back in there. Oh, this camera needs replacing, and I can't afford the R5. Right, okay, so sensor cleaning. Sensor cleaning is one of those things that you should be wary of, but not scared of. It's perfectly possible to do it without damaging your camera. It's also perfectly possible to do it and damage your camera. As I know from people who've done it, and from personal experience on an older camera of mine, I did damage the sensor on an old camera of mine cleaning it. I'll mention that, but it's not as bad as it sounds. What happened was, and it was a combination of Canon's fault and my fault. It was my previous camera, 5D Classic, and there was a stubborn mark on the sensor. And I was having to clone it out of just about every single shot. It was terrible. And I tried cleaning it over and over and over again. Couldn't get rid of it. And so I decided to use a little bit more force than perhaps I should have done. And I managed to take part of the coating off the there's a filter on the sensors. It's a high pass filter, and high pass, no, infrared filter. Yeah, there is a filter on there. Brain's gone dead. And I managed to take part of the coating of that off. What I found out afterwards, well, genuinely I'd used too much pressure, but that was, I had to use an awful lot of pressure to actually cause that damage. And I really was going at it because I was desperate to get rid of that spot. But I also discovered that there was a problem with that particular batch of 5D cameras where the coating hadn't been applied properly and it was able to come off easier than it should have. And I didn't know about this, and Canon did have a free, we will repair it if you have any problems. And they held that for 5 years. Guess when I decided to clean my camera? 5 years and 1 month. So it was 1 month after the option of getting it repaired for free went. In the end, I did get it repaired, I went to a company who put on a new filter on there, and it's been fine ever since. So that's the warning, but I want to mention it partly because of the warning. So be gentle, don't go silly with it. But if you're sensible and don't put too much pressure on with any form of cleaning, then you will be fine, and it's not something you need to be afraid of with your sensor cleaning on there. Stuart's saying, do I mean the anti-aliasing filter? Low pass filter, thank you, Walter. That's the word I was thinking of. Yes, yeah, that's the one. That's why I was saying high pass. I was thinking, no, that doesn't sound right, but yeah, it does sound right. Right, yes, thank you, folks, on there. It's old age, it's catching up with me, you know. Right, okay. Before I start showing you how to clean the sensor, a couple of things just to say about sensor cleaning. First of all, how do you find out if your sensor needs cleaning? Well, some cameras have an option to show where the dust patterns are on the sensor. If you haven't got that, there's a really easy way to find out. You need to take a photograph. You need to be at the smallest aperture that you can get. That's the highest f number. And typically, you can just go outside, point the camera at the sky at f22 or whatever, take a shot, and then if there's dust on the sensor, you'll see it as spots on there. It'll be very, very obvious. If you decide in an evening that you want to do this and you haven't got a nice bright sky, the way I often do it is I take the camera, put it at f22, I set it down to a low ISO, and I might be inside. I will just find something that's a white wall or a white sheet of paper, and I will take a single exposure of that with the knowledge it's going to be about a second to 2 seconds. It doesn't matter, but I'm not putting it on tripod, I'm hand holding it. And in fact, I'm not even trying to hold it steady. I will deliberately move it very, very slightly. Why? Because then any spots that I see, I know must be on the sensor, not on the subject, because effectively the camera was moving on there. And I can see then where the spots are. So that's one way. There is another way, and that is using one of these. If I try and find somewhere on here to show. I'll put it on there. That is a sensor loop. There are lots of different types of sensor loops. These were developed initially by a company called Visible Dust. And what it is I hold it up, it's a lens that you can look through. You basically place it on top of the camera, and there are lights in it. Now, you might just be able to see against my skin there how bright that is on there. Or if I hold it on the table, you can see it shining a light. So with that, you can put it onto the camera and you can actually see onto the sensor whether there's any dust there. So let me show you how to do that. I am going to lock the mirror up to do this, and word of warning on this, make sure you have got freshly charged batteries in your camera. Now, if your camera's firmware is sensible, it will check the power levels on your battery and make sure, and will stop you doing this if the power levels are low, but you can't guarantee that. So I only ever do this with freshly charged batteries, and then I'll lock the mirror up to be able to do this. How do I lock the mirror up? Well, I'll show you on the Canon, and this will be different on different cameras. Now, I'm doing this at 90 degrees so you can see it. So let's see whether I can get this right and whether you can see the menu on here. So let's switch on. And you see it's doing, it did sensor cleaning then. That's the automated shaking the sensor on and power off. Incidentally, here's a question for you. what happens to that dust when it shakes the sensor? Does anyone know? I do, and see how many people actually do know on there. I'll tell you the right answer in a little bit. So if you think you know, stick it in the chat on there. Right, yeah, it's switched on. Menu, and on the Canons it's under the yellow Tools menu. I hope you can just about see that on the screen. There's an option saying Sensor Clean. I hit Set on there, and I've got Auto Cleaning, which is the startup shutdown cleaning that you've just seen. I've got Clean Now, which will shake the sensor, or Clean Manually, which is the one that I want. Clean Manually will lock the mirror up. So if I select that, it gives me a warning on there saying the mirror will be locked up, and it tells me at the end to turn the camera off to put to reset everything on there. So use the dial and say OK. Now, because it's the turning of the camera off that resets this, this is where the problem comes if you don't have a fully charged battery. A friend of mine was cleaning his camera. He didn't have the fully charged battery, and he got a cleaning stick in there, power drained, and the mirror shut on top of the stick, broke the mechanism on the mirror. Big repair bill. So make sure you've got those fully charged batteries. So right, I've now got the mirror locked up. I'm going to turn the camera over, so hopefully you can see what's going on here. And if I take the lens off, you should now be able to see inside. This is weird because I'm working at 90 degrees to try and get the angles right on this. Right, so now I'm not going to be able to show you the view through the sensor loop because I don't know whether it's to do with the camera or the software. But when you look through there, what you will see is a pattern on the sensor. If I look through, and if I do it, I basically move it up to the right focusing distance for my eyesight, I can look through there and I can see there's no dust on my sensor. Yay! I've also got so much light shining back in from my studio lights on here. I think that might be the bigger problem on being able to show you the view through there. But it really is a good way of being able to check the sensor. And it's great because it allows you to be able to quickly check whether you've managed to get rid of the dust that's on there. So how do we actually clean it? Well, there are two ways of cleaning that I use. These are not the only ways. You can get little pads that go on and pull off dust and things like that. But the method I use is with this, and it's called an Arctic butterfly. And it's by a company called Visible Dust. They were the originals. There are third-party ones, which, looking at the Amazon reviews, the third-party ones, the comment seems to be you get what you pay for with them, that they're a bit cheap and not necessarily that good. And how it works, it's a brush. Oh, let me try and, yeah. It's a brush that with a motor to it that goes round like that. So hopefully you can see that whizzing away. And that's what we use to clean it. Except we don't put that into the camera whilst it's whizzing round. What's the point of the whizzing round? That whizzing round does two things. First of all, it generates a static charge, static electricity on there, which will attract any dust to the brush. And secondly, what it does is any dust that has accumulated on there, it throws off. Centripetal force, basic schoolboy physics, folks. So now that's charged up. So what I can do is I just do a simple stroke across there, one direction and the other direction. And that, if there was dust in there, it will pull it off. And set it spinning again, oops, to throw the dust away. Now, typically, I normally say, right, if I'm going to get it spinning, move it well away from the camera when I do it. So I don't want it going back into the cavity that way. On there. Yep, in answer to my question that I asked about what happens to the dust, Walter and Kev both got it right. It falls onto some sticky tape. Basically, it's double-sided sticky tape inside the camera, and that holds onto it. Of course, I do wonder what happens when the sticky tape gets full of dust, but there you go. Never found an answer to that one. I suppose you can send your camera in for servicing and get the tape removed and replaced, but never had to do that. So that's how I would normally clean my sensor. And the brushes on these, on the visible dust ones, come out. Actually, come out at that point is where they're supposed to. Hopefully you can see that on there. And you can get two widths of brush. This one's a little bit beyond the pale now. I really do need to replace it. The two widths correspond basically to crop sensors and full frame sensors normally. This is actually the crop one. That's the one that came with the Arctic Butterfly when I bought it. I did have the one for the full size sensor, but that it got a little bit manky over the years. So I had to throw it away. I've now got this one. I really ought to buy a replacement brush on there. So actually, I'm not leaving that out on there like that. I'll leave that on. Oh, no, you can't see it there. The aim was to try and end up with a really nice looking abstract on the table with all the different products on there. It ain't working. Move that down there. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that there, just about. Cloth, get rid of those, and oh, no, it's going to go high, otherwise I'm hiding it. Right, yeah, so that's how your basic cleaning. But what happens if that approach of using the Arctic Butterfly doesn't work? Well, the next level is to use a wet clean. Now, I'm not going to do that tonight on here because I'm at a really weird angle, and it's the wet clean with the setup that I've got that could potentially damage. There are two types of, there are a couple of different ways of doing the wet clean. You can get what's called sensor swipes, and they are a pole with a sort of spade thing on the end. It's the width of your sensor, and you put, well, with some of them you put the Eclipse fluid on there, and you use that as a clean on the sensor. I still haven't got all this organised. Right, that'll do. So you can do it like that. What I did was I bought another product. Now, I don't think this is available anymore. Certainly wouldn't be available through Amazon. I had to send to the States for it. It was a photographer who invented this himself. And it's called a sensor swipe. And what it is it's a bit of plastic, as you can see there, with the edge, it's a chiseled edge on there for cleaning the sensor. Except you don't use it like that. What you do, and I'm just going to show this with one of the used pads. I wouldn't normally do this with a used pad if I was going to put it in the camera. If I hold this here, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. You wrap it round, and it's so made so that you just do that, and then typically you put a little bit of sellotape across there, and then you can put a couple of drops of the Eclipse fluid on there, and then I'll show you on my hand what I would do with it. You put it in on the sensor and you do a single swipe one way and a swipe the other way, and that should then remove most of the stubborn dust that the likes of visible dust wouldn't get off. The problem I had when I said I damaged the sensor was because instead of just doing that and that, I was doing a really harsh on it to try and get the dust off, and basically I ended up with the corner going into the filter, and that's how I damaged it. So that's the other tool that I would use. But if those aren't available, and I don't think they are, the sensor swabs, I think they're called. I've got the link down to the Amazon page in the description. The caveat being of that, I haven't used one of those because I've got this. But that's effective, and that's how I clean my sensor. Now, for those of you, Gary Platts just said a 3D printer could make one of those spatulas. There's an interesting story behind this. Do you know how he invented it? Does that look like anything that that's familiar? Because his original prototype was a plastic knife that he cut the end off, and that's how he designed it originally. Plastic knife with the end cut off and then chiseled. It is bendy a little bit. It's meant to be. I don't think it's quite as bendy and as soft as I would like, but there you go. It works for me. I'm happy with it. So that is the cleaning setup. I'm just going to put the lens back on there, turn it off. Important to remember to turn your camera off after doing the cleaning, because I'll just tell you a story about that. I was doing a wedding on one occasion, and I cleaned, I didn't mean to do that, I've dropped the spatula. I was shooting a wedding for a client, and just before I set off, and it was one up in the Lake District, so it was a couple of hours drive from here, I cleaned the camera, cleaned the sensor, forgot to turn it off, and by the time I got up to Grasmere, the batteries in the camera were flat. Not good when you turn up to do a wedding with flat batteries. Fortunately, I had spare sets and a charger, so I was able to charge up those and work off the spare set. So no, not a problem, but I always now try to remind people to remember to turn the camera off after doing the sensor cleaning. Right, okay, so let's move on. That's Q&A part 1 done, and one of the biggest parts of the evening on there. So, feedback, yeah. I've picked out 3 images to have a look at in Lightroom and give a little bit more feedback on than the others. So let me just get Lightroom set up on here, and there we go. So these are the 3 images that I'm going to talk in more detail about. So I've got one from James Bissett, one from John, and one from Stuart. These are the ones that I'll give slightly more detailed feedback on. The rest I'll share and talk about later. So let's have a look at this one from James. He'd shared it in the group, in the Facebook group, a few weeks ago, and I think I'd sort of commented on it, but not in any length. And this is one that he shot with a film camera, and he likes the film look on it, on there. The one thing that bothers me about it, and this is one of those things that you hear me talk about quite a bit on the live stream, is the converging verticals. I really don't like the way this is leaning in. But there is, thankfully, a very quick solution to it. and it's under transform. I'll have to go full screen because you can't see that. It's under transform and auto, and there we go. Now, I don't know whether you're watching tonight, James. If you are, just leave me a comment in the live chat. If you watch this on a replay, just leave me a comment in the comments so that I know you've seen it. The one thing I would say, and I'm just going to undo that for the moment, is even without doing that, this edge is very, very close. So just be aware of that when you're framing up, James, just to leave a little bit more space to let your image breathe on there. So if I just do that auto again, because once I've done that, not only was that edge now really clipped, but that one as well on there. But I think it works so much better to have everything nice and vertical on there. The other thing I would say is I think it's very slightly overexposed, but probably only by about a third. So if I just go down to about a third of a stop like that, I think that's slightly better on there. There is plenty of grain in there. That's the nature of film. I wouldn't try and remove that with noise reduction because that's the nature of the beast here. It is intended to be grainy because it's a film and it's the film look. And the colours on there are very, very film-like. So I wouldn't attempt to try and correct the colours on there. It's just those two little things, or three if you talk about the exposure as well. With that nice image, well composed, nice use of the rule of thirds on there, and an intriguing shot. So thank you for sharing it with the group, James. John, now I don't think John's on live. I think you tend to watch on the replay, don't you, John? I sort of challenged John a little bit last week when I was going through images about trying to take his photography to the next level. I've now got a bit more information from you, John, and thanks for letting me know the camera that you're using and what you're using for editing. And my understanding is that you're using one of it's a sort of third-party Osmo Pocket type camera. So it's one of those on a gimbal that's generally a video camera, but you're using it to do stills as well. Now you are going to start hitting. Now I know that I can talk a little bit more sensibly about it. You are getting nice images out of it, but you're hitting some of the limitations of that format. And those limitations are, first of all, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, John, but my understanding is you probably haven't got a viewfinder to look through, so getting things framed up well is going to be tricky. And I think that's become one of the things where I was saying, right, a slight change to your framing. If you're not able to look through a viewfinder, you're not able to see the image on the screen to do those minor tweaks to it, it's going to be tricky for you. Things like just trying to get that horizon from there, say down just a fraction even, it would be tricky without that on that particular camera. So I understand where you're at with it. I would encourage you to keep carrying on with that, but I'm aware you're going to start getting frustrated with it. And at some point, you're going to hit the limitations and you're going to have to make that decision about, for your stills photography, whether you need something that's a little bit more advanced than what you've got at the moment. If you're not frustrated at present with what you've got, then stick with what you've got. I'm not saying you must go out and buy a new camera or anything like that. I just want to give you the heads up that you're going to start getting frustrated on your photography journey, and you might, maybe in the next few months, you might start hitting that point where you're wanting to do things with your photography that particular camera won't allow you to do. So there's that. The next side was the editing side. And I know you've said you've now got Affinity on your iPad, and you had been using Snapseed. Now, I'm a big fan of Snapseed for the iPad. I use it myself, I use it on my phone. It's a really powerful tool. So you've already got one of the really good tools on there. And I think I've seen some of your images where you've clearly used that. This one was with Affinity. Now, I've not used Affinity on an iPad. I've very, very briefly looked at it on the PC. What I do know about Affinity Photo on the PC is that it will give Photoshop a run for its money in a lot of areas. And certainly at the stage that you're at, John, I think Affinity is a very powerful tool for you. You're not going to, it's not going to limit you in any way other than that it's a complex beast to learn. I can't give you specifics on how to use it because I don't. But what I will say and demonstrate here in Lightroom, the techniques will still be available no matter what software you're using, to be honest. And this image that you've got where you've done the color on there, I think you've done a good job with it. There's just a couple of little things that will help this further. I think it's slightly underexposed. So if I just bring that up slightly, and this is really difficult to judge under the bright lights on there, I think to about there. And the vibrance or saturation, depending on which one you want to, I think the saturation, perhaps just down very slightly. It's only a very minor tweak on there with it. And I think possibly just a little touch to the shadows. And they're very subtle. It's subtle changes on there. Let me just get rid of the, there, you can see that a bit better. In fact, if I just go full screen with it, and I'm just going to do the before and after on it. So that's before, that's after. And you can just see there's a subtle detail, that subtle change, so we can bring that up. As I said earlier, I'd like to try and see that horizon on a little closer to the third line. It's off center, which is good, so no problems with that. And it's certainly one of the more interesting images that you've shared. So well done, John. I'm seeing you improve with your photography, and what I'm trying to do is just push you that next stage now. And I would just try auto. No, it didn't do it. It didn't get the verticals right on there. I'm going to do this manually. Those verticals just annoy me when they're not. That's me, and I can just bring that down there like there, then crop in on there, and on there, something like that. And in fact, that gives me just a little bit of scope to go up there. So, yep, that's the only other thing I would do with it. It's a minor tweak on there. That, and then finally, the other one I want to give some feedback on is this one, which I believe was yours, Stuart. I love the concept behind this, that we've got it's an overpower the sun at sunset, and I love that effect. I really do. And you've done well with that. Now, I can't check how sharp it is because I'm working off your Facebook image on there, and Facebook will have ruined it anyway. But there's two things that I think you should do with this one, Stuart. The first is, for goodness sake, let's sort that horizon out. That really bugs me. So I'm just going to rotate that to get it straight and reframe on there. So that's looking a lot better already. Now, the sky up here, that bit of sky is not really adding much to this image, so I would want to lose it. Now, if we went for, now I tend to do, what am I doing here? Right. I tend to crop to the image rather than to a given aspect ratio. So on here, having got to there, I would then start to bring that down, and I think about there is the right place for it. Maybe just in slightly on that side, put a bit more on the third line on there, which would give you something like that. If you prefer to crop to an aspect ratio, that's about 10 by 8, isn't it? Yeah, I wasn't far off with that on a 10 by 8. So I would go with something like that. And I think that's a much stronger image for that tightening of the crop on there. So the technical aspects, I'd love to see your model smile though. I like smiley models. She just looks a little bit tense on there, on that. So I would just work a little bit more with the model just to help her relax. Just generally chat with your model to try and get that more relaxed feel to the image, and that's the feedback on that, Stuart. So back over to the PowerPoints. Get rid of that. Right, let me just catch up on the comments. So the comments saying, using Affinity, rescued a lot of photos, yeah. Right, okay, question that's come in. Gary saying, for reviews, would it be worth setting up a Dropbox account? They're free up to a certain size. I have Dropbox and I'm always right on the limit for people to drop raw XMP files to aid with the critique. Yes, I'm always happy to accept images for critique like that. As Kev says, I prefer WeTransfer than Dropbox on that, just to send them to me that way, or because you just go to WeTransfer once you've got an account, put in my email address, send it to me, and I can then just drop it into the right folder as it arrives. I find that works really well on there. Yeah, Michael is saying Affinity 90% like Photoshop. Gary's saying he uses both. Oh, he's using both WeTransfer and Dropbox. Gary doesn't like the time limit WeTransfer imposes. The time limit is 1 week, and I don't think that's unreasonable, particularly for something like this, because for me, the 1 week thing, you will know if I've downloaded it or not on there, and it's so easy just to send again anyway. So for sending things to me, it works fine. If you're sending stuff for, or you're wanting something in the cloud that you want to live there for a while, then Dropbox is better for that. Just sending from there. And the final comment I got on here was from Stuart saying it was sunrise, not sunset, and he'd been photographing all night, so level horizon was least of his worries. Good grief. I don't see sunrise, and I don't do early. Mind you, I might see a sunrise by the fact that I'm up that late, but there you go. So yeah, well done, Stuart, to do that. I know you said you weren't expecting feedback on there, but that's what I do. Stuff that goes into the Facebook group, pick up a few on there. And the only reason I did the in-depth ones tonight was because I didn't get my act together to get a 3-minute edit to go into the show tonight. I thought the show was going to go short. Fat chance. We've already run over. Never mind, let's carry on. Right. Yep, over. I want to give you all a challenge, folks. And the challenge is, no, that's the wrong heading. Right there. It's a 1-20-20 challenge. Now, I know some of you, Kev particularly, is aware of this challenge. If you've had anybody else do a 1-20-20 challenge, let me know, because I invented it. This is unique to me. I've done it with a lot of people now when I've been traveling and on the events. And it goes back to a problem that I identified, I think we can all relate to. It's with digital, it doesn't cost us anything when we hit the shutter release. It's free from the point of purchase onwards. And that means we've started to get lazy. In the film days, every time you hit the shutter, it cost you money. And what did that mean? Well, it meant that you thought about every shot. You were careful about how many you took, and you considered each shot. You looked at the settings, you looked at the composition, you looked at the exposure before you hit that shutter release to get the decent image. So I wanted to come up with something to make you think and take people back to that stage where you have to think about every shot that you're creating, to think about your composition, to think about your settings. So the challenge I designed is that you have 2 hours. That's the 120, the 120 minutes to take 20 photos. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But there's a catch. And the catch is there are no deletions. They are all to be consecutively numbered images out of the camera. No retakes, which means every image needs to be a different subject. So if you messed up on one image, too bad, you move on to your next subject. And finally, you agree to show all 20 images. So this is going to put you under a little bit of pressure to get things right. You've got a time pressure, you've got a number of shots pressure, and you've got peer pressure in the sense that people are going to see your mistakes, warts and all. But it's a really good experience to do it. I've done it a number of times now myself, and it really does make you think. And the way to do it, normally the way I do this is I gather people together in a particular location and I set people off and they go off, and then we meet back again at the end and we have a look at all the images. Well, we can't do that in a COVID world, and the fact that we are dispersed. We've got people in Chester, in Manchester, in Stockport, even in France watching this. So I wanted to come up with a version that will work wherever you are in the world. So the way you're going to do it is, if you're going to take me up on the challenge, go to a location. It can be your hometown, it can be another location, it can be as small as a park or as big as a city. And you're going to do the challenge there under your own steam. Now, to make sure there's no cheating, what I want you to do is, I always start with a card that says shot 0. You can download that from the link down in the description to this video. And it's just 2 cards, one at the beginning, one at the end. So it's effectively photo 0 is the start card, photo 21 is the end card, and you should have 20 images in between. Remember, no deletions on there. So take the photo of that card, and then that starts your timer. From the point and the timestamp on that, you have 2 hours to get your 20 shots. That's an average of 6 minutes per shot, which might sound easy. And it is easy if you happen to be on a cruise ship, which is where I have run this a few times. It's much harder if you're in Manchester city centre and you've got to walk from one location to the next and find a subject on there. So it depends where you are as to whether you will need the full 2 hours. I did it in Rochdale and it was sort of borderline. Manchester was hard work. It really was to get it all done in time. So those 20 shots are the ones that you do. If you send me any more than 20, anything beyond the 20th will get ignored. Doesn't matter how good it is, it's those 20 that you will do. And I will check the XMP data to make sure you've not deleted anything and you're not cheated on there. So how we're going to do it? Send me the images via WeTransfer, and I will put them together as a slideshow, which I will show in some of the future live streams. It might be, I'm thinking of doing a special with 2 or 3 of the live, depending on how many people do this. I might do one show with 2 or 3 of them in, or if I've got quite a number, I might scatter it over a number of shows to showcase your work on there. So what's your deadline? Get your images to me by the 18th of September. That gives you about 2 and a bit weeks to do it. So there's at least 2 weekends in there and a bank holiday Monday tomorrow to have a go at this. And the first show that I will start showing them on is the 20th of September. So let me give you an example of one that I did, and then I will also talk about some hints and tips on doing this. And this one was in Manchester. And I think this was also the one that you did, Kev, if I remember rightly. So here we go. My card at the beginning, that's photo 0. And let's move through. And I did sort of details on one of the fountains, details on a statue, the court building. I actually sold that one later, so I actually earned some money off mine. Spinning field, a sign again. Trying to get a different angle on the Opera House in Manchester. That one didn't quite work, but my own reflection in this steel globe thing there. Mozzie, again stone sheep, and that was a bit of graffiti, the clock. Again, quirky angles looking up the side of the Manchester Town Hall. And again, one that didn't work. It looks out of focus. It isn't. It's a fountain and the flow of the water on there. So yeah, you will end up with some shots that don't quite work as part of your 20 on there. Inside the Barton Arcade, I think. The old Wellington Inn in Manchester. Abstract image of Urbis, I think. Hard Rock Cafe. The Manchester Eye, the famous telephone box, post box in Manchester, the one that was next to the bomb and survived, and a busker. So, oh yes, and finally, gargoyle on the fountain. Now, obviously, it's a challenge, not a contest. There's no prizes for this, but I would encourage you to have a go at it. And the only person you're competing against is yourself. And the aim is quite honestly to make you a better photographer, to help you improve on there. And anyone who completes the challenge and submits the images is a winner. I have to say that. Here's a few hints. Look for details. Details are always good when you do this challenge on there. And try and get a variety. Don't just do one thing. Do perhaps some street photography, do some detail shots, do some scenics of the location that you choose. It can be people. Be very mindful of people's privacy, especially as the aim is that this will go on the internet. So I would say I always ask permission if I'm going to photograph somebody in public. On there, and that's what I did with the busker. I did ask for his permission beforehand, and he said yes. I also threw a couple of coins in his hat, and then asked for permission. You find they're much more amenable that way if you a busker if you throw the coins in first on there. And what I would like you to do is to let me have JPEG versions rather than the RAW on this occasion. So either shoot JPEG or shoot RAW plus JPEG, and you can send me those. Or if you want to shoot RAW, try and keep your processing in Lightroom or whatever down to a minimum. This is all about getting it right in camera. So all the ones you've just seen of mine, I hadn't cropped on them. They are exactly as they are out of camera. I might have just done my usual slight tweak to the RAW files, but there were no major changes at all to them. I have another one which I was nearly showed as part of this, where everything was black and white, and with those, the only thing I did in Lightroom was just to convert them to black and white and then export as JPEG. So part of the challenge is really do minimal post-processing on this, because this is all about what you get right in camera, which if you're willing to shoot RAW plus JPEG and just send me the JPEGs, great. But you may, depending on your style of shooting, you may need to do a little bit of work in post-production. Then do that. I'm happy to that, but try and keep it down to a minimum on there. And then the final thing to say on it is good luck. If you think you're going to have a go at it, just let me know in the chat, just so that I know whether to expect any coming in on there on that. Kev has said in the challenge in the chat, the challenge is a lot easier now. He's shooting with mirrorless because you can see the actual exposure. Kev says he thought it was at Chester, which means it wasn't me running it, because I did Manchester and I done Rochdale in this area. I think I did one down in the Peak District as well. Kev's going to give it a go. Terry's asked if he's allowed to change his lens. Yes, absolutely. You can change your lens. Just don't change the camera on there. With that, I mean, I'm trying not to be too restrictive on there. The idea is to challenge yourself. So do have a go, folks, if you can. Right, let me just talk about your images to finish. These I'm going to make quick comments on and then move on, not in-depth reviews as I did with the other three. The theme I set for the week was summer images. So we got a shot from Gary of the view from the window covered in rain. Yep, we've all done that shot. I'm not sure about the choice of the horizon on this. When I've done these, Gary, I've tended to change my position and my angle so that it's all greenery, the whole thing. Because what I'm finding with this image is my eye is drawn up to the bright area away from the rain droplets on there. On that, Peter. Yeah, Peter, this one of yours, your summerish image, I've got a particular challenge for you about your photography in general. I can't remember what camera you shoot with. Looking at the aspect ratio on there, I suspect it's a compact camera. Correct me if I'm wrong. I hope I'm not doing you an injustice on that. But one of the things there, the bright area of that sky is overexposed. And the solution to it, although it may or may not work with this particular image because it is already very dark in areas, but my challenge for you, Peter, is to learn how to use exposure compensation if you don't already use it. It's the little plus minus option on there. If you're already familiar with it, great. My challenge is then think a bit more about using it with your shots. Oh, the D750, yeah, that you're using. Right, what mode do you shoot in? Are you in aperture priority or with that, or are you in program mode on there? Because I just get the feeling that the thing which will help you from what I've seen of your images is sometimes getting control of the exposure, possibly with exposure compensation on there. I won't say any more. Feel free to message me if I need to explain a bit more on there, or if there's enough people who don't know about exposure compensation, I'll deal with it on my Q&A on a future live stream. Bob posted this. I'd finished my PowerPoint slides, I'd saved everything, I looked at the group and I spotted this image from Bob of the typical British summer. I thought it's a cracking one, Bob. I really like it. You've just got the motion, the moment spot on there with the kid looking at the waves, and you can see he's about to get soaked on that, and he's probably going to love it anyway. And I think that's just a lovely shot, well put together. Just capture the moment on there. Right, yeah, Peter's saying he's on program and change as needed. Right, yeah, maybe I'll send you a message on that, and we'll chat about that. I want to get you off program mode. Is the thing to help you move on with your photography, I think. Right, so that's one of Bob's. Not much to say other than cracking shot on there. John. Right, I talked about your other one and gave you a fair bit of feedback. I wanted to just highlight this one. I like this. We've talked a little bit about where you get the horizon with your images in the past, and having the figures on the horizon off center, which you have now done on this one. So I just wanted to highlight it and say, well done. This is really, I'm seeing your images improve week on week. I just want to give you the kudos on that. So well done, John, with that. Another one from Peter, the rain through the window and the plants. Yeah, I just like that. And the slow shutter speed on here, if it was a conscious decision to have a slow shutter speed, it was the right decision to get the droplets appearing as streaks in the shot. So well done, Peter, on there. Gary posted one of his theatre dance shots, and lovely performance shot there. Absolutely timed to perfection. As far as I can tell, pin sharp on there as ever. Love the image, and it inspired Michael to share this one, which is a studio shot rather than a performance shot. Nice shot, Michael. My only comment on this is just watch the toe being a little bit close to the edge of the frame on there. It's been cropped in tighter by the looks of it. I don't know whether you've cropped out on this side or just whether the framing needed to be a bit wider. Bit of advice for dance shots like this in a studio. This is one of the few times where I will shoot wide and crop in post-production, because the dancers are never quite where you exactly where you want with them on there, and then crop in. And I have a feeling that you were just a little bit tight on the framing on that, so it does need that little bit of extra space on that. Other than that, well executed. And it looks like you were, well, it looks like a combination of available light, maybe a little bit of a fill-in flash on there. Yeah, Michael's saying yes, he was trying to shoot a little looser on there. Weren't loose enough, mate. No, yeah, just that little bit more on the toe. So if it is looser on there, just give a little bit more on that rear foot on there. Richard, hope you're still hovering there in the background after I told you off for not replying to my email. Sorry about that. But yeah, these images that you did of in the water tank, absolutely cracking. I really like these. Can I ask you a question if you're actually on here watching? Were you in the water or were you photographing through a screen? And secondly, how are you getting the light in there? Because it's obviously lit with something, but I don't know whether they're in the tank or through a glass window. I'd love to know a little bit more about the lighting on this and the mechanics of getting those shots on there. But the colours on them are lovely. I love this one, the bubbles and the release of the flower in there. So really nice images and cracking model for it as well. Obviously experienced with doing it and doing a really good job. And the final one, male model in there, another great shot. So well done, mate, on there. And I have to say, you've inspired at least one member of the group to have a go at it himself, and he shared the results. So Peter's attempt, I think it needs a little bit more work, Peter. No, a lovely joke shot. Really like it on there. Nice one to throw in there, Peter. Good one on there. So, any new questions in the Q&A before I finish? Haven't seen any come in on the chat on there. Right, any new images in the Facebook group? Anything come in on there that I've seen? Let's go to the group. Right, yes. The most recent one is the cat, one that Peter's been shooting this week, which is there. That cat has got an evil stare to it. It really has on there. I'm a cat lover. I had 2 cats. Well, I've had more than 2 cats over the years. But that one just scares me. They say about cats that cats were once worshipped as gods in Egypt, and they've never let us forget it. Anyway, it's a nice shot, Peter. I like the backlighting on there. So thanks for sharing it in the group. So let's just move on. I think, yes, time to wrap up. So thank you for bearing with us and watching, folks. My thanks to Rick, even though he didn't do anything this week, mainly because I didn't get my act together for the 3-minute challenge on there. Thank you for everyone for letting me talk about your images. And so, as ever, please subscribe. Please comment, please like. How are we doing on the likes? Yeah, 12 of them, good, keep it up. Oh, Peter's admitted he'd nicked the shot from the internet. Oh, naughty. Right, so thank you, everyone. Next time, right, I'm going to be doing the subject of wildlife photography. And as most of you probably know, I'm not a wildlife photographer. So I'm going to do extracts from a talk I give when I'm on the cruises called How Not to Do Wildlife Photography. I'm not quite sure which bits I'm going to do on there, but that's what I'm going to do. So please share in the Facebook group this week your wildlife images. Show me how it should be done in the group. And I'll see you next week, same time, same back channel. And until then, folks, keep making great photos. See you next week. Bye for now. Right, this is the point I do the alternative ending for those who were watching the cut down version when I eventually create it. So here goes. Thanks for watching this cut down version of In Studio Live. If you're watching this, the full version's now over on my Academy. To join the Academy, it's a simple £6 a month payment or £60 a year. You get lots of resources in there, including lighting sheets, guides for photographing different subjects called my inspiration sheets, in-depth information on well over 100 images, breakdown of how they were photographed, why they were photographed, how they were post-processed, and the settings used. You have access to my to me for mentorship as well. So it's a real bargain, folks. Come and join me in the Academy. So anyway, thanks for watching this week, and I will see you again in the next show. Bye for now, and until then, keep making great photos. Bye-bye.